The worst organized DM I've ever played under. It takes something special to be an organized play DM. You are giving up your personal time to run games for strangers and to really contribute to the gaming community. And most of the time, I admire that. Then there's this guy. This individual is a combination of some of the worst traits I've ever seen in a DM. Firstly, he's intensely boring, insisting that every bit of text be read in the same tone, and even when it doesn't apply to the players or characters at the table. Secondly, he seems to think that, as the DM, we are playing a secondary game of high school classroom, where it is the DM's job to lecture, because that is how his ming comes across. A lecture, and the player's job to be quiet until he calls on us. Those two things are bad enough, but then they're rounded off with a rather shallow understanding of the game he's trying to run. So he'll constantly look toward one more experienced player for clarification on basic rules. Or he'll try to offer build advice to people he's never met before. Advice they haven't asked for, don't want, and at least in my case, went completely counter to the goal of the PC I was running. What boggles my mind, though, is that this individual seems to be totally static. I played at his table 6+ years ago, and it was the worst experience I'd ever had at one point in time. While the group was deep in RP and all of us using accents to denote that we were ripping, we were told to shut up so he could read a piece of flavor text that didn't affect any of us and wasn't necessary to the scene. It soured me on my entire local scene, and I didn't come back till last summer because I figured, A, he's probably gone by now. Nope. I'd brought a group of 5, filling an entire table. Gamers who had played before, who knew the rules, and who understood the ebb and flow of a game. Then in walks this guy. An audible groan from 2 of us who were at the previous game. But we decide to give him a second chance. After all, he's been running games here for years. He must have improved by now. If anything, he'd gotten worse. While he could track initiative and tell us whether or not a blow landed. That is the extent of the nice things I have to say. Between his utter lack of presentation skills, his relative confusion regarding basic rules like movement through difficult terrain, whether all chemical items were touch attacks, etc., and his sheer inability to lie convincingly without fail. Whenever he rolled a d20 behind a stack of books, it was a hit. Whenever he rolled in front of us, it was a miss. Odd coincidence that, since he never told us numbers when we were hit, just nodded and told us it had happened. It was one of the most grindingly poor game experiences I've ever had, so thought I'd get that off my shoulders.